We are embarking on a journey to uncover the secrets of the moon.
That's right. And it's a place that really captures the imagination, doesn't it? This big, bright, beautiful orb in the sky has been a source of wonder and mystery for as long as humans have looked up.
Absolutely. I mean, who hasn't spent a night staring up at the moon, just lost in thought?
Right. And for all that time, we've been asking questions. Where did it come from? What secrets are hidden on its far side? Are we really alone in the universe?
Big questions. And tonight, we're going to take a deep dive into those questions. We've got some fascinating sources to guide us as we explore the latest scientific theories, delve into some historical accounts, and even touch upon some of the more, should we say, speculative ideas that surround our lunar neighbor.
Yeah, we're going to cover a lot of ground. We'll look at everything from the moon's formation to the possibility of ancient lunar civilization.
Exactly. And we're going to try to do it in a way that's engaging and informative, even if you're not a rocket scientist.
Exactly. So if you're ready to unravel the mysteries of the moon, buckle up, because we're about to blast off.
Okay, let's start with the basics. How did the moon actually get there?
Well, the prevailing theory is something called the giant impact hypothesis, which basically says that a Mars-sized object called Theia smashed into Earth billions of years ago.
I've heard of that one. The debris from that collision then coalesced to form the moon.
Right, and it's a pretty solid theory, especially when you consider things like the moon's orbital tilt and the fact that it's moving away from us at a rate of about 1.5 inches per year.
Okay, so that's the giant impact theory in a nutshell. But are there any wrinkles in that story? Our sources seem to hint that maybe it's not as straightforward as it seems.
Yeah, there are definitely some unanswered questions. For one thing, the moon's composition is remarkably similar to Earth's. If it formed from the debris of a completely different object, you'd expect to see more variation.
That's a good point. So what are some of the other possibilities being considered?
Well, there's the fission theory, which proposes that the moon was actually spun off from the early Earth. But that one has fallen out of favor because it doesn't really explain the moon's orbital dynamics very well. Then there's the capture theory, which suggests that the moon formed elsewhere in the solar system and was later captured by Earth's gravity.
Interesting. And each of those has its own set of strengths and weaknesses. But the giant impact hypothesis still seems to be the front runner.
Yeah, it's the best explanation we have at the moment,
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean it's the final word.
exactly. And that's what makes this so exciting. There's still so much we don't know about our celestial neighbor.
Right. And every new discovery seems to raise even more questions.
Speaking of unanswered questions, let's move on to the far side of the moon, that hidden hemisphere that always faces away from Earth.
Ah, yes, the side we never see.
Until relatively recently, right? I mean, it wasn't until the Soviet Luna 3 probe flew past it in 1959 that we got our first glimpse of what was back there. And what they found was pretty surprising.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The far side of the moon is radically different from the side we're used to seeing. It's got fewer of those dark, smooth Mariana seas and a much thicker crust. It's almost like two completely different worlds.
And that begs the question, why? What forces could have shaped these two sides so differently?
Well, one theory is that it has to do with tidal forces. The moon is tidally locked to Earth, meaning that the same side always faces us. This also means that the far side is shielded from some of the gravitational stresses that have shaped the near side.
Interesting. So the tug of Earth's gravity has actually played a role in sculpting the lunar landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just one example of how these two celestial bodies are intertwined in a complex dance that goes back billions of years.
And there's a lot more to that dance than meets the eye, right? Our sources mention something called mascons.
Oh, yeah. Mascons or mass concentrations are basically areas on the moon with higher than average density.
Okay, so how do we know they're there? I mean, we can't exactly weigh the moon from down here.
Right. We know about them because they have a measurable effect on the orbits of spacecraft. When a probe passes over a mascon, it experiences a slight gravitational tug, which can alter its trajectory.
Interesting. So what causes these mascons? Are they just random clumps of matter, or is there something more to it?
Well, the most likely explanation is that they're the remnants of ancient impact craters. When a large asteroid or comet slams into the moon, it can leave behind a dense concentration of material buried beneath the surface.
So they're like gravitational ghosts of these ancient impacts.
Yeah, I like that. Gravitational ghosts. That's a good way to think about it.
And there are a lot of them, right? These mascons seem to be scattered all over the moon's surface.
Yeah, there are hundreds of them that have been identified. And their distribution and size tell us a lot about the moon's bombardment history.
Okay, so mascons are fascinating and a little bit spooky. But there are some even more intriguing features on the lunar surface, things that have sparked countless theories and debates over the years, things like towers, pyramids, and monoliths.
Okay, now we're getting into the realm of speculation.
But these images are out there, right? Photos taken by lunar orbiters and even by the Apollo astronauts themselves that seem to show structures that, well, they don't look natural.
Right, and there are a lot of people who believe that these structures are evidence of an ancient lunar civilization.
I mean, I have to admit, some of those photos are pretty convincing.
Yeah, they are. But it's important to remember that the human brain is wired to see patterns, even where none exist, especially when you're looking at grainy images of a distant world.
So you're saying it's all just pareidolia, our minds playing tricks on us.
Most likely, yes. But of course, there's always that tiny possibility.
That something else is going on, that maybe we're not alone in the universe after all.
Exactly. And that's a thought that keeps a lot of people up at night, staring at the moon and wondering.
Speaking of strange things happening on the moon, let's talk about transient lunar phenomena, or TLPs. These are unexplained flashes of light, changes in color, or even temporary obscurations that have been reported by astronomers for centuries.
Yeah, TLPs are a real head-scratcher. There's no single explanation that accounts for all of them. Some could be caused by meteoroid impacts, others by outgassing or even electrostatic charging.
But some of them are harder to explain, right?
Oh yeah. There have been reports of TLPs that last for hours or that move across the lunar surface, things that are really hard to square with conventional explanations.
So what are we to make of these more anomalous TLPs? Are they a sign of some unknown lunar process, or could they be something else entirely?
Honestly, we just don't know. That's what makes them so fascinating. They're a reminder that there's still so much we don't understand about our celestial neighbor.
Which brings us to another mystery, the question of the moon's atmosphere. Today, it's essentially a vacuum, but there's evidence to suggest that it may have once had a much thicker atmosphere.
Yeah, that's right. Some scientists believe that the early moon may have had an atmosphere composed primarily of volatiles released during volcanic eruptions.
So we're talking about a time when the moon may have been a much more dynamic place, volcanically active, and potentially even capable of supporting liquid water on its surface.
Exactly. And that raises some really intriguing possibilities about the early history of the solar system.
I mean, if the moon had a thicker atmosphere and liquid water, could it have been habitable at some point?
It's definitely possible, and that's a question that scientists are actively investigating.
And even if life never arose on the moon itself, it's possible that microbes from Earth could have been transported there by meteorites.
Yeah, that's a fascinating idea. Imagine finding evidence of ancient Earth life preserved on the moon.
It would be like opening a time capsule from billions of years ago, and who knows what other secrets might be waiting to be uncovered.
Exactly. The moon is a treasure trove of scientific potential, just waiting to be explored.
Which brings us to the final topic for tonight, the question of whether or not there have been secret activities happening on the moon.
Okay, now we're definitely getting to the realm of conspiracy theories.
But these theories are out there, right? Stories about secret moon bases, UFO sightings, and even government cover-ups.
Yeah, those stories have been circulating for decades, and they're fueled by a combination of genuine mystery, Cold War paranoia, and a healthy dose of human imagination.
I mean, let's be honest, the moon is a pretty good place to hide something if you don't want anyone to find it.
Absolutely. It's big, it's remote, and most of it is unexplored. It's the perfect setting for a secret base or a clandestine operation.
And with all the talk about returning to the moon with the Artemis program and private companies like SpaceX getting involved, it's hard not to wonder if we'll find something truly unexpected up there.
Yeah, who knows what we might discover?
Hmm?
Maybe we'll find evidence of an ancient civilization, or maybe we'll stumble upon something even more surprising.
Or maybe we'll just find more rocks and craters.
That's always a possibility. But even if we don't find anything truly earth-shattering, just the act of going back to the moon and exploring it in more detail is going to be incredibly exciting.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe one day we'll have permanent settlements on the moon, and it will become a more familiar and less mysterious place.
Maybe. But I have a feeling the moon will always hold a special place in our hearts and minds, as a symbol of both our past and our future.
Yeah, well said. So there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour of some of the most fascinating mysteries surrounding our nearest celestial neighbor.
From its formation to its potential for harboring life, the moon is a place that continues to captivate and inspire us.
And as we venture back into space, it's likely to reveal even more secrets and wonders in the years to come.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe one of you listening right now will be the one to make the next great lunar discovery.
That's a good thought to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the mysteries of the moon.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep looking up.